You've been lied to about boundaries. They told you that saying no damages relationships. They told you that people will respect your limits if you communicate them clearly. They told you that healthy connections survive when you assert yourself. Look around. How many times have you said no to someone and watched them turn cold? How many times have you declined a request and felt the atmosphere shift? How many times have you drawn a line and been met with silent punishment, passive aggression, or sudden distance? This isn't coincidence. This is programming. And 500 years ago, a Florentine diplomat named Niccolò Machiavelli wrote a truth so dangerous that the Catholic Church banned his work for centuries. He observed that human beings don't actually want you to have boundaries. They want your compliance. And the moment you refuse to comply, they activate something primal, something punitive, something designed to break you back into submission. Today, we're going to dismantle the illusion that your relationships are built on mutual respect. We're going to examine the invisible punishment protocols that activate the second you say no. We're going to explore why most of your connections are transactional arrangements wearing the mask of friendship. And by the end, you'll understand why your autonomy costs you relationships, why that cost is non-negotiable, and why the people who leave after your first no were never yours to begin with. This is not comfortable, this is not warm, but once you see this mechanism, you cannot unsee it. There is no going back to ignorant compliance. You will watch people differently. You will feel the tension when you're about to say no, and you will recognize the punishment protocol for what it is: proof that you were never free. Most people will watch this and do nothing. They'll nod along and return to saying yes until they collapse under the weight of obligations they never wanted. But you're still here, which means some part of you already knows. Some part of you has felt the cold shift. Some part of you is ready to see the architecture underneath the facade. Let's begin. You were taught that obedience is kindness, that saying yes makes you a good person, that flexibility is strength and accommodation is love. This is the foundational lie upon which all control is built. The truth is simpler and colder. You are surrounded by people who have been conditioned to extract compliance, not through violence, not through explicit threats, but through something far more insidious: social punishment protocols. These are invisible, automatic, and devastatingly effective. Here's how it works. From childhood, you were trained in a binary feedback system. Say yes, receive warmth. Say no, receive coldness. Comply, get smiles. Resist, get silence. This isn't parenting. This isn't friendship. This is operant conditioning wearing a human face. Machiavelli understood this 5 centuries ago. He wrote that princes must understand the nature of necessity and the mechanics of obligation. He observed that people do not give loyalty freely, they give it transactionally in exchange for perceived benefits. And the moment those benefits stop flowing, loyalty evaporates. The same principle applies to your daily life. The people around you have been unconsciously trained to punish resistance. You say no once and watch what happens. First, there's the pause. That fractional moment of recalibration where they process that you've denied them something. Then comes the shift. The smile fades, the tone changes. Suddenly they're busy, suddenly they're distant, suddenly you're the problem. Not because you did anything objectively wrong, but because you disrupted the transaction they believed was guaranteed. This is not personal cruelty, this is social architecture. Human beings are economic creatures. We calculate costs and benefits constantly, unconsciously. When you were saying yes, you were a benefit. The moment you say no, you become a cost, and costs get eliminated. Think about your last 10 interactions where you said no. How many of those people responded with genuine understanding versus subtle withdrawal? How many gave you space versus gave you guilt? How many accepted your boundary versus attempted to negotiate it away? If you ignore this pattern, You become a domesticated animal. You learn that resistance equals pain, so you stop resisting. You internalize the punishment until you punish yourself preemptively. You say yes before anyone even asks, because the weight of potential rejection feels heavier than the burden of unwanted obligation. This is how free people become voluntary prisoners. But here's what Machiavelli knew that most miss. The punishment protocol is not a sign of your failure, it's a diagnostic tool. It reveals who was in relationship with you versus who was in transaction with you. The people who punish your no were never bonded to your humanity. They were bonded to your utility. You must start viewing your no as a filter, not a weapon. Every time you decline, you're running a test. Who respects the boundary? Who negotiates it? Who punishes it? Who disappears entirely? This data is priceless. This data shows you the truth beneath the performance. Stop apologizing for your boundaries. Stop explaining them. Stop softening them with justifications and reassurances. A boundary stated clearly needs no defense, and anyone who demands a defense is attempting to find the angle of attack. They're looking for the weak point in your resolution so they can wedge it open and reinstall their access. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Translate that into modern language. It is better to be respected for your consistency than liked for your flexibility. Because love built on compliance isn't love, it's dependence masquerading as connection. Watch who tries to punish you. They're showing you who they are. Believe them. But this goes deeper than you think, because the punishment protocol isn't just about control, it's about economics. You need to understand something brutal about human relationships. Most of them are not relationships at all. They are utility arrangements, and the moment you stop being useful, the arrangement terminates. This is the utility hypothesis. It states that the majority of your social connections are not based on who you are, but on what you provide. Emotional labor, financial support, social validation, professional connections, entertainment, distraction. The list is long, but the principle is singular. You are valued for your function, not your essence. Machiavelli observed this in the courts of Renaissance Italy. He watched alliances form and dissolve based purely on strategic advantage. He saw friendships that lasted decades evaporate the moment one party lost power. And he concluded something most people still refuse to accept. Friendship rooted in utility dies when the utility ends. You've experienced this even if you haven't named it. The friend who only calls when they need something. The family member who's warm when you're successful and cold when you're struggling. The colleague who's friendly in the office and invisible outside it. These aren't bad people. They're economically rational actors operating within a transactional framework they don't even recognize. Here's the test. Say no to someone's request. Just once. Don't be rude. Don't be aggressive. Simply decline. I can't help with that. That doesn't work for me. I'm not available. Then observe. If the relationship was genuine, the person accepts your no, and the connection continues. Maybe they're disappointed, but they respect your autonomy. They understand that you're a sovereign being with your own priorities, limitations, and boundaries. The relationship survives because it was built on mutual regard, not mutual extraction. If the relationship was transactional, the person reacts. They get cold, they get distant, they guilt you, they remind you of past favors, they withdraw their presence as punishment for your non-compliance. The relationship fractures because it was never a relationship, it was an exchange, and you just stopped delivering your half of the unspoken bargain. This is why saying no is terrifying, because deep down you know that many of your connections won't survive it. You know that the moment you stop being useful, you stop being valued, and facing that truth is like staring into a void. Most people cannot handle this, so they keep saying yes, they keep performing, they keep providing utility even when it drains them, even when it degrades them, even when it destroys them, because the alternative, Discovering how few genuine connections they actually have is too painful to bear. But you are not most people. If you were, you wouldn't still be watching this. Machiavelli wrote that men are ungrateful, fickle, liars, and deceivers. They shun danger and are greedy for profit. While you treat them well, they are yours. They would shed their blood for you, risk their property, their lives, their sons, so long as danger is remote. But when you are in danger, they turn against you. Translation: people align with you when it benefits them and abandon you when it costs them. This is not cynicism, this is observation. You've seen this in your own life. The people who swore loyalty when you were rising and vanished when you fell. The friends who loved your energy when you were giving it freely and disappeared when you needed to receive. The partners who adored you when you were accommodating and punished you when you prioritized yourself. This is the utility hypothesis in action. You were never loved for being you. You were loved for what you did for them, and the moment you stopped doing it, the love evaporated. So, what do? You stop hoping for unconditional acceptance from conditional people. You stop investing depth into shallow soil. You start treating your time, energy, and presence as scarce resources that must be allocated strategically, not distributed indiscriminately. You say no, and you watch. You watch who stays and who leaves. You watch who respects and who resents. You watch who accepts your humanity and who punishes your autonomy. The ones who leave were never yours. The ones who stay might be, but you'll never know until you stop being endlessly available. This brings us to the cost, because sovereignty is not free. There is a price for autonomy. It is paid in loneliness, misunderstanding, and the slow erosion of superficial connections. This is the sovereignty tax, and it is non-negotiable. Every time you say no, you are choosing yourself over someone else's agenda. Every time you draw a boundary, you are prioritizing your needs over their expectations. Every time you assert autonomy, you are declaring that you are not a resource to be exploited. You are a sovereign entity with agency. This is beautiful in theory. In practice, it costs you. Your social circle shrinks, invitations decrease, group chats go quiet. When you stop being the one who always agrees, always shows up, always accommodates, people who once called you friend now call you distant, difficult, selfish, changed. This is not accident. This is consequence. Machiavelli understood that power, real power, not performative posturing, creates distance. He wrote that a prince must learn to be able to not be good and use this ability or not according to necessity. Translation: you must be willing to be disliked in service of your sovereignty. You must accept that choosing yourself will cost you people who only valued you when you chose them. Most people cannot pay this tax. They try to negotiate it. They attempt to maintain sovereignty while avoiding social cost. They want autonomy without loneliness, boundaries without backlash, self-prioritization without being labeled selfish. This is impossible. You cannot eat your cake and have it too. You cannot assert your will and maintain universal approval. The moment you stop bending, people who needed you bent will label you broken. Here's what they won't tell you. This is a feature, not a bug. The sovereignty tax is a filtering mechanism. It removes people who were only present when you were pliable. It dissolves connections that existed only because you were giving endlessly. It reveals who actually values you versus who valued your compliance. Think about it economically. When you say yes to everything, you attract people who want everything. When you say no strategically, you repel people who cannot handle boundaries and attract people who respect them. Your social ecosystem shifts. Quality replaces quantity. Depth replaces breadth. But you have to be willing to feel the void first. You have to sit in the silence after declining an invitation and not receiving another. You have to endure the coldness after asserting a need and being labeled demanding. You have to tolerate being called selfish by people who were happy to take endlessly when you were giving. Machiavelli wrote that one must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. Translation: you need cunning to identify who is draining you and courage to cut them off. Both are necessary. Intelligence without courage leaves you aware but enslaved. Courage without intelligence leaves you isolated but directionless. The sovereignty tax is highest at the beginning. When you first start saying no after years of saying yes, the backlash is intense. People who had unlimited access suddenly have limits. They react like addicts cut off from supply. They rage, they manipulate, they guilt, they punish. Do not negotiate with this. Do not explain yourself into exhaustion trying to make them understand. They understand perfectly. They simply preferred you exploitable. You will lose people. Some of them you loved, some of them you thought were foundational. This will hurt. Let it hurt. Do not numb yourself to avoid the grief. Feel it fully and keep your boundaries anyway. Because here's the truth beneath the pain. You are not losing people. You are discovering who you never actually had. The relationship you thought existed was built on your compliance. When compliance ended, the relationship ended, which means it was never what you believed it was. The sovereignty tax is the price of clarity. You pay with temporary loneliness to purchase permanent truth. You trade shallow abundance for deep scarcity. And yes, scarcity is the right word, because after you've filtered out everyone who only wanted your utility, what remains is rare, vanishingly rare. But those few people, the ones who stay after you say no, who respect you more for your boundaries than they resented you for them, those are real. Those are the foundation upon which sovereign relationships are built. Pay the tax, endure the void, trust the filter. But there's one more trap you need to understand. It's older than Machiavelli and twice as binding. You need to understand how favors become chains, how generosity becomes obligation, how past kindness becomes present leverage. This is the gratitude trap, and you are already caught in it. Someone helped you once. Maybe they lent you money. Maybe they gave you a job. Maybe they supported you through a crisis. The favor was real. The help was genuine. But now, years later, that favor has transformed into something else, a debt you can never fully repay, a string they pull whenever they need compliance. After everything I did for you is not gratitude, it is weaponized obligation. Machiavelli observed that benefits should be granted little by little so that they may be better enjoyed, but he also understood the inverse. Benefits granted strategically create perpetual indebtedness. The person who helps you in crisis has purchased leverage over your future decisions, and they will use it. This is not malicious conspiracy. This is human psychology. When someone invests in you during your weakness, they unconsciously expect returns during your strength. The initial favor was not pure altruism. It was strategic positioning. Conscious or not, they were buying access to your future utility. You feel this as guilt. When they ask you for something and you want to say no, their past kindness echoes in your mind. How can you refuse them after what they did for you? How can you prioritize yourself when they prioritized you? Aren't you being ungrateful, selfish, disloyal? This is the trap closing. You are conflating one-time help with permanent obligation. You are treating a discrete favor as infinite debt, and the person who helped you consciously or unconsciously is reinforcing this conflation every time they remind you what they did. Here's what you need to understand. Gratitude does not equal enslavement. You can be genuinely thankful for past help while still saying no to present demands. These are not contradictory, but you have been conditioned to believe they are. You have been taught that if someone helped you once, you owe them perpetual accommodation. This is false. Favors are not investments. Help is not a contract. Support during crisis does not purchase unlimited access to your time, energy and compliance going forward. Machiavelli wrote that friendships that are obtained by payments may be lost when payment is no longer forthcoming, but he was describing mutual transaction, not permanent bondage. The favor was the payment. It has been paid. The account is settled. Anyone who claims otherwise is attempting to transform a closed transaction into an open-ended obligation. You see this in families constantly. Parents who supported their children financially now demand obedience to life choices decades later. Siblings who helped during hardship now expect perpetual priority. The original favor was genuine, but it has been weaponized into a control mechanism. You see it in friendships. The person who was there for you during your breakup now demands you be available during their every inconvenience. The friend who lent you money once now treats you as eternally indebted. The favor has been inflated from discreet help to permanent leverage. You see it in professional contexts. The boss who gave you a chance now expects you to work unpaid overtime indefinitely. The mentor who opened a door now expects you to never close it. The colleague who covered for you once now reminds you constantly, extracting favors for years. This is the gratitude trap. It operates on a simple mechanism. Genuine help creates genuine gratitude, but strategic actors inflate that gratitude into perpetual obligation. They use your own sense of fairness against you. They exploit your desire not to be ungrateful to prevent you from ever saying no. Break this pattern. Acknowledge the help. Be genuinely thankful. And still say no when your boundaries require it. You are not ungrateful for having limits. You are not disloyal for prioritizing yourself. You are not selfish for refusing to live in permanent debt to anyone who helped you in the past. Machiavelli understood that gratitude has limits. He wrote that men forget more quickly the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony. Translation: people value present material benefit over past emotional connection. If they're invoking past favors to control present behavior, they've already revealed that the relationship is transactional. So how do you escape the trap? You stop negotiating the premise. When someone says, "After everything I did for you," you do not defend yourself. You do not explain. You do not justify. You simply acknowledge and maintain your boundary. I appreciate what you did. My answer is still no. And that's it. No elaboration, no apology, no negotiation. Because the moment you start explaining why you can't help this time, you're accepting the premise that you owe perpetual compliance. You're entering a negotiation that has no win condition for you. The people who truly helped you out of genuine care will accept your no. They will understand that their past help does not entitle you to your present obedience. They will respect your autonomy because they actually value you as a person, not as a resource. The people who weaponize their past help will react. They will escalate the guilt. They will remind you in detail of what they sacrificed. They will withdraw, punish, and label you ungrateful. This is proof that their help was never altruistic. It was an investment, and they're now demanding returns. Let them go. You do not owe your sovereignty to anyone, not to parents, not to friends, not to mentors, not to anyone who helped you when you were weak. Gratitude is genuine. Obligation is manufactured. Free yourself from the trap. Say no anyway, and watch who actually loved you versus who purchased you. Now we build the architecture that makes this sustainable. Saying no is not enough. Any fool can refuse. The architect understands something deeper. Boundaries without strategy are just noise. You need to build systems that make your no lethal without declaring war. This is the architect's boundary. It is not aggression. It is not confrontation. It is not dramatic severance. It is cold, strategic indifference executed with surgical precision. Machiavelli wrote extensively about the balance between fear and love. He concluded that while both are desirable, if you cannot have both, it is safer to be feared. But he was not advocating terror, he was advocating respect through consistency. People fear what they cannot manipulate. People fear boundaries they cannot negotiate. People fear autonomy they cannot breach. You become feared in the Machiavellian sense by being predictably immovable, not aggressive, not hostile, just immovable, like a stone wall. You do not argue with a stone wall. You do not guilt a stone wall. You do not manipulate a stone wall. You either accept it or you leave. This is your model. You do not owe explanation. You do not owe justification. You do not owe emotional labor to people demanding access you're unwilling to grant. You state your boundary once, clearly, and then you stop engaging with challenges to it. Here's what this looks like in practice. Someone asks you for something. You decline. They push back. Why not? Can't you make an exception? I really need this. After everything we've been through, old you would engage. You'd explain. You'd justify. You'd provide reasons they could then argue against. You'd enter a negotiation where your boundary becomes the subject of debate. New you says, it doesn't work for me, and then nothing. They push again, you repeat, word for word, it doesn't work for me. They escalate, you go silent, not punitive silence, not passive-aggressive withdrawal, just absence of engagement. This is unbearable for people accustomed to negotiating your boundaries. They are used to finding the crack in your resolve. They are used to emotional appeals working. They are used to guilt producing compliance. Your refusal to engage denies them all their tools. Machiavelli understood that the appearance of strength is often more important than strength itself. You do not need to be the most powerful person in the room. You need to be the most predictable in your boundaries, because unpredictability invites testing. Consistency discourages it. Think of a vending machine. It does not negotiate. You insert money, you receive product. You do not insert money, you do not receive product. No amount of begging, bargaining, or threatening changes this. The machine is not cruel. It is simply consistent. It does not care about your hunger or your emergency or your history of purchasing from it before. It operates by fixed rules. You need to become the vending machine of your own energy. Fixed rules, fixed outcomes. No exceptions based on emotional manipulation. But here's the crucial distinction. You are not cold to everyone. You are strategically warm to those who respect your boundaries, and strategically indifferent to those who test them. This is not sociopathy. This is resource allocation. You have finite energy, time, and emotional bandwidth. You cannot distribute it equally to all people. You must allocate it based on reciprocity and respect. The people who accept your first no receive your continued warmth. The people who push your boundaries receive your withdrawal. Not as punishment. You are not punishing them for asking. You are simply recognizing that they do not respect your autonomy, and therefore they do not qualify for your depth. This is the scalpel, not the hammer. You are not cutting people off dramatically. You are allowing natural distance to form between yourself and anyone who cannot respect your limits. You become less available, less responsive, less invested, not out of malice, out of necessity. Machiavelli wrote that, since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved. But again, feared means respected for your consistency, not terrorized by your aggression. You want people to know instinctively that your no means no, that testing your boundary is futile, that you are not negotiable. Over time, something shifts. The people who cannot handle boundaries filter themselves out. They stop asking because they know you'll decline. They stop pushing because they know you won't bend. They drift to relationships where compliance is guaranteed, and what remains in your orbit are people who respect autonomy, yours and theirs. These relationships are different. There is no manipulation because manipulation doesn't work. There is no guilt because guilt is not a tool you respond to. There is mutual respect born from mutual boundaries. These people are rare, but they are real. You must be willing to let everyone else go. The friends who only liked you pliable, the family who only accepted you obedient, the partners who only loved you accommodating. Let them find someone else to drain. You are not their resource anymore. This is lonely at first. Architects work in isolation before anyone sees the cathedral, but the cathedral gets built, and when it stands, the right people recognize its beauty. The wrong people see only walls keeping them out. Build your walls, make them clear, make them consistent, make them non-negotiable, and then watch who respects the architecture versus who tries to scale it. The ones who respect it are your people, the rest never were. So here you stand. You've seen the punishment protocols, you've recognized the utility hypothesis, you've counted the sovereignty tax, you've identified the gratitude trap, you've learned the architect's boundary. You know now that saying no reveals truth, that most of your relationships are transactions, that autonomy costs you people who were never truly yours, that past favors do not equal permanent obligation, that strategic indifference is kinder than false warmth. You have a choice now, and it is binary. You can close this video and return to compliance. You can keep saying yes to preserve relationships built on your exploitation. You can maintain the illusion of connection by remaining endlessly available. You can avoid the sovereignty tax by never asserting sovereignty. You can stay in the trap by honoring obligations that were never genuine. This is easier, this is comfortable, this is what most people choose. They see the truth and choose the lie anyway, because the lie is warmer, because loneliness terrifies them more than exploitation drains them, because they would rather be used than alone. If that is you, no judgment, genuinely. The sovereign path is brutal, it is isolating, it is misunderstood. It requires you to value your autonomy more than you fear abandonment. Most people do not have that capacity. Most people need to belong more than they need to be free. But if you are still here, you are not most people. You are the outlier who would rather be alone and sovereign than connected and enslaved. You are the architect who sees relationships as structures to build intentionally, not accidents to endure passively. You are the one who understands that quality of connection matters infinitely more than quantity. This path is hard. You will say no and watch people leave. You will draw boundaries and be called selfish. You will prioritize yourself and be labeled cold. You will become unavailable to those who took your availability for granted, and they will punish you for it. Let them. Their punishment is proof that you were correct. Their withdrawal is evidence that the relationship was conditional. Their absence is the space clearing for people who actually value sovereignty, yours and theirs. Machiavelli wrote that everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Translation: most people will judge you by their inability to control you. Few will understand that your boundaries are self-respect, not selfishness. Those few are worth everything. The rest are worth nothing. You will be misunderstood. Accept this. You will be called difficult. Embrace this. You will be alone sometimes. Use this. Solitude is the crucible where sovereignty is forged. You cannot become unbreakable while surrounded by people who need you broken. The people who remain after your boundaries are enforced, those are your people. The ones who respect your no, the ones who value your autonomy, the ones who do not need you pliable to love you. They are rare, vanishingly rare, but they are real. Build your life around them, not around the masses who punished your refusal, not around the users who exploited your compliance, not around the manipulators who weaponized past favors. build around the rare few who saw you assert boundaries and respected you more, not less. This video has shown you the architecture. You cannot claim ignorance anymore. You cannot pretend you don't see the punishment protocols activating when you decline. You cannot unsee the transactional nature of most connections. You cannot unknow that your sovereignty has a price. The only question is whether you're willing to pay it. Most people are not. They will watch this, agree intellectually, and change nothing behaviorally. They will continue saying yes until they collapse. They will continue prioritizing others until they forget themselves entirely. They will remain in the trap because the trap is familiar. But you are not most people. You are the architect. You are the sovereign. You are the one who chooses autonomy over approval. Say no. Watch who punishes you. Let them leave. Build your fortress. The right people will respect the walls. The wrong people will break themselves against them. And you will finally be free. This channel exists for those who see beneath the surface, for those who understand that most of what you were taught about relationships is designed to keep you compliant, for those willing to trade comfortable lies for uncomfortable truths. If you've made it this far, you already know you're different. The algorithm will bury this content. Most people will reject it, but the ones who need it will find it, and when they do, they'll recognize themselves in every word. There's a button below this video. It's red. Most people won't press it because pressing it means commitment. It means you're choosing to see more truths like this. It means you're done with surface-level motivation and ready for architectural transformation. The majority will watch and do nothing. They prefer the comfort of ignorance to the burden of awareness. If you're the majority, that's fine. This isn't for you. But if you're the architect, if you value sovereignty over popularity, clarity over comfort, quality over quantity, then you know what to do. Press it. Join the few who are building themselves into something unbreakable, or don't, and prove that you were never ready to pay the sovereignty tax. The choice is yours, but you already know which choice you're going to make. You always did.